In a world where success is often measured by the standards of others, Maya Thompson found herself trapped in the expectations of her family. At 25, she was a passionate artist, yearning for recognition in a field dominated by male counterparts. Growing up in a traditional household, Maya had always felt the weight of her father's ambitions, resting heavily on her shoulders. Mr. Thompson, a successful businessman, had dreams of his son Ethan following in his footsteps, while Maya's artistic aspirations were often dismissed as mere hobbies. As she stood in her father's office, the air thick with tension, Maya felt a familiar pang of disappointment. Her father's voice boomed across the room. "Art isn't a career, Maya. It's a distraction. You need to focus on something that matters." His words cut deep, echoing the sentiment she had heard countless times before. Maya had spent years trying to prove herself, striving to be the perfect daughter, but it was never enough. The moment she decided to stand up for her best friend Sophie, who had been accused by Ethan of stealing artistic ideas, was the moment everything changed. "You don't understand what it's like to be a woman in this world," Maya retorted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. As her father's face turned a dangerous shade of red, she knew this confrontation would cost her dearly. "If you choose her over your family, then you're no daughter of mine," he thundered. And in that moment, Maya realized she had to choose her own path, no matter the cost. The confrontation escalated quickly, the tension in the room palpable. Maya stood her ground, her heart racing as she faced her father. "Sophie didn't do anything wrong. Ethan is the one who stole her ideas," she exclaimed, her voice rising above the chaos of emotions swirling around them. Mr. Thompson slammed his fist on the desk, the sound reverberating through the room like a thunderclap. "You're defending a thief? Do you have any idea how much damage this has done to Ethan's reputation?" His words were laced with anger, but Maya felt a fire igniting within her. "Ethan is not the victim here. Sophie's work deserves to be recognized, and I won't stand by while you destroy her career." Maya's voice was steadier than she felt, but she refused to back down. Just then, Mrs. Thompson, her mother, appeared in the doorway, her hands wringing nervously. "Maya, honey, please. Your father knows what's best for you," she pleaded, her eyes darting between father and daughter. "Does he?" Maya shot back, turning to face her mother. "Or does he just prefer to believe Ethan because he's a man?" The words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of truth. Mr. Thompson's face turned a dangerous shade of purple, a color Maya had learned to fear as a child. "Get out," he spat, his voice low and menacing. "If you want to throw your lot in with that lying piece of trash, then you're no daughter of mine. Get out of my house." Maya felt her heart shatter, but she stood tall, trembling yet resolute. "Fine, but remember this moment, Dad. Remember it well." With that, she walked out of the office, her heart pounding in her chest, leaving behind the only home she had ever known. As she stepped outside, the cool air hit her like a wave of reality. She had nothing but her car keys and the clothes on her back. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she pulled it out to see a text from Sophie. "My spare room is yours if you need it." That night, Maya drove to Sophie's tiny apartment across town. When Sophie opened the door, her eyes were red and swollen, a mirror of Maya's own pain. "Maya, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I stood up for you," Maya replied, her voice thick with emotion. "And now, I need a drink." They sank into the worn couch, sharing a bottle of cheap wine, the weight of the world pressing down on them. As they talked, surrounded by Sophie's vibrant paintings, Maya felt a flicker of hope. "I'm tired of watching him destroy people's lives, just because they don't fit his image of success," she confessed, her heart racing with determination. "What will you do now?" Sophie asked, her eyes searching Maya's face for answers. Maya glanced at Sophie's latest painting, a phoenix rising from ashes, its wings spread wide against a blood-red sky. "We're going to take everything back, your art, my dignity, all of it. We can do this together." Sophie's laughter was hesitant but hopeful. But Bill never let us succeed. Your father has connections everywhere. Watch me, Maya said, pulling out her phone. I'm about to do something either really brave or really stupid. Maya dialed Sophie's friend, Faith, who had connections in the art world. Hey, remember that empty storefront your uncle was trying to rent out? Is it still available? Maya asked, her heart racing with anticipation. Yeah, why? Faith's voice crackled through the speaker, curiosity piqued. Because I'm about to change my life, Maya declared, determination flooding her veins. Sophie looked at her, a slow smile spreading across her face. You're serious about this? Dead serious, Maya replied, raising her wine glass. To new beginnings and sweet revenge. As they toasted, Maya felt a surge of hope. What if we fail? Sophie asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Then we fail on our own terms, not his, Maya said firmly. But we're not going to fail. We're going to build something so successful that one day he'll have to look at what we've created and know that everything he believed about us was wrong. That night, they stayed up until dawn, plotting their future between bottles of wine and takeout Chinese food. With each hour that passed, the weight of Mr. Thompson's rejection felt less like a burden and more like freedom. As the sun rose over the city, Maya stood at Sophie's window, watching the world wake up. You know what the best revenge will be, she mused. Success. Pure, undeniable success. And when we achieve it, we won't owe him a single thing. Little did she know just how sweet that revenge would taste, or how high the price of success would be. But standing there in that moment, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. 3 months into their venture, the studio looked more like a storage unit than an art gallery. Maya wiped the sweat from her forehead as she hung track lighting, while Sophie arranged her latest paintings against the exposed brick wall. You know, Faith said, scrolling through her phone, most people would have given up by now. Maya chuckled, shaking her head. Most people haven't met my father. Just then the bell above the door chimed, and a well-dressed woman walked in, her heels clicking against the unfinished concrete floor. Is this an art gallery? She asked, her eyes scanning the room. It will be, Maya replied, climbing down the ladder. I'm Maya, and this is Sophie, our featured artist. The woman's gaze lingered on one of Sophie's paintings, a powerful piece depicting a woman breaking free from chains made of golden thorns. Interesting. Very raw. But I've never heard of either of you. That's about to change, Sophie said, her voice stronger than Maya had heard in months. I'm Margaret from the Downtown Business Association, the woman introduced herself, handing Maya her card. We're hosting an art walk next month. Normally, we only invite established galleries, but... She gestured to the thorn painting. How much? 3,000, Maya said without hesitation, ignoring Sophie's sharp intake of breath. Margaret raised an eyebrow. For an unknown artist? For a masterpiece? Maya met her gaze steadily. Look at the detail in those thorns, how they catch the light. That's not just paint, it's emotion made visible. Margaret studied the painting for another long moment. 2,500, and we deliver it personally. Done, Maya said, a grin spreading across her face. After Margaret left, Sophie grabbed Maya's arms, her eyes wide. Are you insane? That painting wasn't even finished. It is now, Maya grinned, feeling a rush of excitement. We just made our first real sale. Faith clapped her hands together. This calls for celebration. Later that evening, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and half-finished beers, Faith helped them crunch numbers. Okay, with Margaret's check, you can cover this month's rent and still have enough for supplies. Barely, Maya muttered, thinking of her dwindling savings. You need publicity, Faith said, her eyes sparkling with ideas. Fine, I know a blogger who... No, Sophie interrupted, panic rising in her voice. No publicity. What if Ethan sees it? Let him see it, Maya said, her resolve hardening. Let them all see it. Faith, call your blogger friend. The next week passed in a blur of preparations. They worked 18-hour days, transforming the space into something that almost resembled a professional gallery. On opening night, exactly 6 people showed up. One was Faith, 2 were her parents, and the others were lost tourists looking for a bathroom. "Well, this is depressing," Faith said, munching on cheap cheese cubes. "It's just the beginning," Maya insisted, though her voice wavered. Then the door opened and her mother walked in. Maya's heart stopped. "Mom?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm here," Mrs. Thompson said, looking around nervously. "Your father doesn't know I'm here." "Of course he doesn't," Maya replied, crossing her arms. "Why are you here?" "Because," Mrs. Thompson pulled an envelope from her purse, "because I saved this from your college fund." Inside was a check for $5,000. Maya tried to hand it back. "Please," her mother's voice cracked, "let me do this one thing right." Before Maya could respond, the door chimed again. This time, it was the blogger Faith had contacted, accompanied by a photographer. "Perfect timing," Faith called out. "Sophie, show them your newest series." As Sophie led them through the gallery, Maya squeezed her mother's hand. "You've built something beautiful here," Mrs. Thompson said softly. "It's not enough," Maya whispered, her heart heavy. "Not yet." "It will be," her mother reassured her, kissing her cheek. "I have to go, but Zaria, Maya echoed, confused. "Sorry, I meant Maya," her mother corrected herself, a smile breaking through her worry. "I'm proud of you." 2 days later, the blog post went live. By that evening, their phone wouldn't stop ringing. The next morning, 3 pieces sold before noon. "Ollie," Faith said, refreshing the blog page. "The post went viral. You're trending locally." Sophie burst through the door, waving her phone. "Have you seen the comments? They love it. They actually love it." Maya was about to respond when a new email popped up. Her hands shook as she read it. "What?" Faith and Sophie asked simultaneously. "The Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art," Maya said, barely breathing. "They want to feature Sophie's Thorn series in their Emerging Artist Showcase next month." Sophie collapsed into their single chair, disbelief etched on her face. That's impossible." "That's karma," Faith said, grinning. Maya printed the email and pinned it to their inspiration board, right next to the first dollar they'd earned. "No, that's just the beginning. Now let's make them remember our names." The universe, it seemed, had finally decided to deal them a winning hand. They just had to be brave enough to play it. As the weeks passed, the studio transformed from a cluttered space into a vibrant gallery, filled with the energy of creativity and hope. Maya and Sophie worked tirelessly, pouring their hearts into every piece they created. The buzz around their work grew, and soon they were preparing for their first major exhibition. On the day of the exhibition, the gallery was alive with excitement. The walls were adorned with Sophie's stunning paintings, each one telling a story of resilience and strength. Maya stood at the entrance, her heart racing as she welcomed guests. "Is this really happening?" she whispered to Sophie, who was adjusting the lighting on one of her pieces. "It is," Sophie replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. "We did this together." As the evening unfolded, Maya felt a sense of pride swell within her. They had worked so hard to get to this moment, and it was finally paying off. People admired Sophie's art, discussing the emotions behind each brushstroke. Just then, Maya spotted her mother in the crowd, trying to blend in. "Mom," she called out, rushing over. "I'm so glad you came." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," Mrs. Thompson said, her eyes shining with pride. "You've built something incredible here." Maya beamed, feeling a warmth spread through her. "Thank you for believing in me." As the night continued, Maya's phone buzzed with notifications. She glanced down to see a message from Margaret. "I have a buyer interested in one of Sophie's pieces. They're willing to pay $5,000. Maya's heart raced. "Sophie, we just got a huge offer." Sophie's eyes widened in disbelief. Are you serious? Absolutely. This is our moment, Maya exclaimed, her excitement contagious. They quickly finalized the sale, and as the night came to a close, Maya felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. They had not only survived but thrived, and the future looked brighter than ever. With their newfound success, Maya and Sophie's studio quickly gained attention in the art community. They were featured in local magazines, and their social media following skyrocketed. Maya felt a sense of validation she had never experienced before, but with success came new challenges. One evening, while preparing for another exhibition, Maya received a text from Faith. "Your dad is coming to the gallery tonight. He wants to talk." Maya's heart sank. "What does he want?" "Not sure, but you should be prepared," Faith replied. As the night unfolded, Maya's anxiety grew. When Mr. Thompson walked through the door, he was dressed in his usual business attire, exuding an air of authority. "Maya," he said, his voice smooth but laced with tension. "I've been following your progress. Very impressive, really." Maya crossed her arms, her heart racing. "What do you want, Dad?" "I'm here to discuss an opportunity," he said, spreading his arms wide. "The Thompson Foundation is launching an arts initiative, and we'd like to feature your gallery as our flagship project." Faith snorted from the corner. "You mean now that they're successful, you want a piece of the pie?" Mr. Thompson ignored her, focusing solely on Maya. "Think of the exposure, the connections." "Like the connections you used to blacklist Sophie's work?" Maya interrupted, her voice steady despite the anger bubbling inside her. "The past is the past," he waved dismissively. "I'm offering you legitimacy." Maya laughed, a bitter sound. "Legitimacy? We built this ourselves while you were busy trying to destroy us? I don't need your approval or your connections." Mr. Thompson's expression darkened. "You're making a mistake." "The only mistake I made was spending 25 years trying to earn your approval," Maya shot back, her voice unwavering. As he left, Maya felt a mix of relief and anger. She had stood up for herself, but the confrontation left her shaken. Later that night, as she sat with Sophie and Faith, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of unease. "He won't let this go," she said, her voice low. "Let him try," Faith replied, already typing on her tablet. It's time people knew the whole story. The following weeks were a whirlwind of interviews and preparations for their biggest show yet. Maya and Sophie worked around the clock, turning the gallery into a testament to resilience and redemption. One evening, as they were setting up the final pieces, a young woman approached Sophie. "Your work saved my life," she said quietly, tears in her eyes. "I left my abusive partner after seeing your Breaking Free series." Sophie hugged her tightly, both of them crying. Maya stepped away to give them privacy, feeling a swell of pride for her friend. "You know what the best part is?" Faith said, watching the scene unfold. "Every time your father tries to take credit for your success, there are hundreds of stories like that proving him wrong." The opening night of the show was packed. Art critics, collectors, and media filled the gallery, and Maya spotted her mother in the crowd, trying to be inconspicuous. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya addressed the room, her voice carrying over the buzz of conversation. "Tonight isn't just about art. It's about truth. It's about standing up when the world tries to silence you." Sophie joined her at the podium, her confidence shining through. "Every piece in this collection tells a story of survival, of fighting back, of refusing to let others define your worth." The crowd erupted in applause, and as cameras flashed, Maya caught a glimpse of her father watching from outside the gallery windows, his expression unreadable. Later that night, after the last guest left, Maya and Sophie sat on the gallery floor, sharing champagne. "We did it," Sophie said, raising her glass. "We really did it." Maya's phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline read, "Thompson Foundation under investigation for financial irregularities." "Karma's a funny thing, isn't it?" Faith said, grinning. Maya thought about her father's face at the window, about all the years of dismissal and doubt. "The best revenge isn't just success," she said. It's success that helps others rise too. They clinked their glasses together, celebrating not just their triumph, but the sweet taste of justice served cold. As the months passed, Maya and Sophie's gallery flourished. They received invitations to showcase their work in prestigious exhibitions, and their community outreach programs began to take shape. Maya felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. One day, as they were preparing for another event, Maya received an invitation to her cousin's wedding. It had been 3 years since she had seen most of her family, and the thought of returning filled her with anxiety. "You don't have to go," Faith said, perched on the edge of Maya's desk. "Just send a nice gift and call it done." "I do, though," Maya replied, picking up the invitation. "My cousin stood by me when everyone else turned their backs. I owe her this." On the day of the wedding, the weather was perfect, but Maya felt knots in her stomach as she adjusted her deep blue dress. She walked into the church, her heart racing. "Zarya!" Her cousin Sarah rushed over, her wedding dress rustling. "You came!" "Wouldn't miss it," Maya said, hugging her tightly. As the ceremony unfolded, Maya felt eyes on her, whispers and stares following her every move. During the reception, she kept to the edges of the room until her mother found her. "You look stunning," Mrs. Thompson said, touching Maya's hair. "The gallery is doing well, you know." "It is," Maya replied, her heart heavy. "Your father's business, it's not good, Zarya," her mother said, glancing around nervously. Maya sipped her champagne, feeling the weight of her father's choices. He made his choices. Just then, Mr. Thompson approached, his voice cold. "We need to discuss this like adults." Maya turned to face him, her heart racing. "There's nothing to discuss. Your foundation is drowning and you want my gallery's reputation to save it. The answer is no." "You ungrateful," he began, but Maya cut him off. "Everything I did was for this family," he said, his voice rising. "No," Maya replied, stepping closer. "Everything you did was for your ego. You protected Ethan when he stole from Sophie. You blacklisted her work. You threw me out for standing up to you. And now that we've succeeded despite you, you want to pretend it was all part of your grand plan?" The crowd around them fell silent, eyes wide with shock. "Zarya!" her mother pleaded, but Maya held her ground. "Congratulations, Sarah," she said, turning to her cousin. "I'm sorry we disrupted your day." As they left, Maya felt a sense of liberation wash over her. She had stood up for herself, and for the first time, she felt free. In the months that followed, Maya and Sophie continued to build their gallery into a thriving hub for emerging artists. They established the Rising Phoenix Arts Foundation, dedicated to helping young artists find their voice and share their stories. Maya stood at the window of their studio one evening, watching the city lights twinkle against the darkening sky. She felt a sense of peace wash over her, knowing that she had created something meaningful. As she turned to Sophie, who was busy preparing for their next exhibition, Maya smiled. "You know, I never thought I'd find my way back to art after everything that happened." Sophie looked up, her eyes shining. "But you did, and you've helped so many others along the way." Maya nodded, feeling a sense of fulfillment. Success isn't just about proving someone wrong. It's about creating a legacy that lifts others up. As they prepared for the next chapter, Maya knew that the journey was far from over. Together they would continue to rise, turning pain into purpose, and creating a brighter future for themselves and those around them. "Here's to new beginnings," Maya said, raising her glass. "To new beginnings," Sophie echoed, their laughter filling the room as they celebrated the journey ahead.